Welcome to the Amazing Dinosaurs channel. Today I'm going to give you a tour of all of my Jurassic World Dinosaurs display shelves. And we're going to start it off with the biggest figures, which are the super colossal dinosaurs. This first figure is actually not a super colossal figure, it's from Imaginext, and it is a Giganotosaurus figure. Right next to that, I've got the super colossal Indominus Rex figure. This figure has some of my favorite texturing all over its body and some of the coolest teeth. Right next to that is the giant Giganotosaurus figure. This super colossal figure has the classic green shading with the black and the spine running along its back. And right next to that, I've got an herbivore dinosaur. This is the Brachiosaurus. This giant figure has the super long neck and the bulky body that stands on 4 legs. This is one of the newest super colossal figures that Jurassic World has released. This is a classic T-Rex. Right next to that, I've got a custom colored T-Rex. This one was originally an orange T-Rex, but now it is a light blue-gray T-Rex, and it's got some awesome bright red eyes. Over here is another pretty new dinosaur from Jurassic World Dominion. This is an Atrociraptor figure, and it's got much smaller teeth than the Indominus Rex figure, but it still has some really cool texturing and coloring all over its body. Speaking of really cool coloring, check out this custom-colored Endoraptor figure. Its body is mostly black, but of course it has the gold stripe running down its side. Here are some more giant T-Rex figures. There's an orange one, and here's another custom colored one. This one is a fiery red T-Rex figure, and it has no pupils in its eyes, which looks really crazy. And then finally, I've got a giant Velociraptor blue figure and a giant Carnotaurus Toro figure. And those are most of my super colossal figures. I've also got ones in the top shelf that we'll see in a little bit. But for now, let's get started on this level right here. This is my Indominus Rex level. Over here on the right, I've got a custom colored Indominus Rex that I got pretty recently. Right next to that are 2 of the, I think they were called Slash and Devour Indominus Rex figures, and these figures are pretty large. This next one is another figure from Imaginext, and it's quite a different looking Indominus Rex figure. It has the blue spikes on its back and the huge orange eyes. On this shelf, I also have a Lego Indominus Rex figure, which I don't have that many of on my display shelves. Here's also a smaller Indominus Rex. I believe this one was a Bite and Thrasher. It's got some battle damage right on its side. Right next to that is one of my brightest custom colored dinosaurs. This Indominus Rex has some bright blue and purple and orange all over its body. This next smaller Indominus Rex is actually the Sound Surge Indominus Rex. It's got the speaker there right on its side for all the different sound effects. And the final Indominus Rex on this shelf is the extreme battle damage version. You can see right on its side that battle damage that you can reveal and hide with the click of a button. And now moving up a level, I've got a bunch of herbivores in this next shelf. Over on the left, I've got 2 really cool Stegosaurus figures. This one's pretty old, but this one is actually quite recent. This one's part of the Dino Tracker series that is coming out right now. Over here is also the Pentaceratops. It has some action buttons on its back. There's also the Amargosaurus dinosaur right here with action buttons of its own. There's also some of the coolest Triceratops figures in my collection. Got a dark green one, an orange one. I think this one is from Camp Cretaceous. And this one I actually custom colored myself. So what do you think? It's got the mostly gray body, got some red spikes on its front, the dark green eyes, and a pink underbelly. And on the very right, I've got a giant Kentrosaurus figure. It's pretty similar to a Stegosaurus, but it has some huge spikes coming out of its sides, and its tail is a lot crazier looking too. And moving up one more level are some of my smaller figures. Got another Triceratops here. Here's a bright green Velociraptor, a baby Stegosaurus that I got pretty recently. This one actually came as a set with an adult Stegosaurus. I've got some Predators right here. This one is the Geniodectes Cirrus. Here are some Dilophosaurus figures with their super bright frills. There's a baby Brachiosaurus figure right here in the bright green color. A smaller Triceratops with battle damage on the side. Some more Velociraptor figures. This one actually has extreme battle damage on the side. And then finally, another herbivore. This one is a Parasaurolophus. Alrighty then, now let's move to the left. Let's see some of these smaller figures on this shelf. The first one on the right is a Jurassic World Dominion Iguanodon figure. Right next to that, I believe, is a Sinoceratops figure. I've also got a Pyroraptor and a couple Dimetrodon figures right next to that. This one I believe is from Jurassic World Dominion. You can see it's got the extreme battle damage on the side. And this figure I think is a little bit older. It might also be from Jurassic World Dominion, but I'm not sure. Over here I've got an Atrociraptor figure. And this one you'll notice is almost the same coloring as the Super Colossal. You can see that this one is also white. It's got the brown striping. And this one actually has two different tones of brown striping. Let's put that one back. And next to that, I've actually got a new Herrerasaurus figure. And it looks quite a bit different from the old Herrerasauruses. We'll see if I have any set up on these other shelves. But last of all, on this top shelf, I've got a few Funko Pop figures from Jurassic World Dominion. Here's the Therizinosaurus with some super bright coloring. I've got the T-Rex figure right here, and of course the Giganotosaurus. Now let's move it down a level to some of the bigger figures. These are all T-Rex figures. Over here on the very left is the Stomp and Escape Tyrannosaurus Rex. Next to that is the Jurassic World Dominion Super Battle Damage T-Rex. Check that out, just with the click of a button you can turn it on and off. And this dinosaur is almost an orangish color, which is pretty interesting. Here's another recent custom colored T-Rex that I bought off of eBay. I believe this one was called the Tear and Devour T-Rex, and they did a pretty good job with it. It's got a very natural brown coloring over its body, and they added a bunch of battle damage to its body too. Let's not forget about one of the coolest T-Rex figures, the Hammond Collection T-Rex. You can pose this in all sorts of different directions, and it has some pretty amazing detail. Behind that one is an older T-Rex figure. I think this one might be part of Camp Cretaceous or maybe Fallen Kingdom. I can't remember. And this one is another Stomp and Escape T-Rex, but it is one that I custom colored. So check out that bright green coloring with the brown on top and compare that to the original coloring right over here. It's quite a bit different, and I'm really happy with that. And I've got three final T-Rexes here. This is the Sound Surge T-Rex. This larger one here is a dark brown color as well. I can't remember what series it's from though. And this giant one in the back here is the Camp Cretaceous T-Rex. On the next lower level, we've got more Predator figures. I've got two Giganotosauruses right here, and I think they look pretty similar with their coloring and their shading. This bigger one, of course, has some really cool attack buttons, and this littler one is the Sound Surge version. Next to that, I've got some of my coolest Carnotaurus figures. This one is actually a very recent one. This is the Epic Attack Carnotaurus, and it's got a bunch of action buttons on its side. Here's a much brighter Carnotaurus figure. It has one action button on its back for chomping. And behind that is another larger Carnotaurus. I believe this one was the Camp Cretaceous version. And next to that are some smaller Predator figures. I've got a few Baryonyx figures. This one is the Hammond Collection, and I've got another very similar colored one right next to it. There's an Albertosaurus figure here in the back. There's a Fallen Kingdom Baryonyx figure right there. And then I've got two Allosaurus figures, one in the tan and blue coloring and one in the green, red, and white coloring. And moving on to the next lower shelf here are many of my newer Jurassic World Dominion figures. Over here on the right is the Hammond Collection Triceratops. Way in the back there is the Ichthyovenator dinosaur, super brightly colored. This super bright dinosaur is the Rowdy Roars Atrociraptor, and I've got two Rajasaurus figures right next to that, each with their own unique coloring. Over here is the super famous Ichthyovenator figure. Next to that, I've got a Scorpiovenator figure. Behind that, I've got an Ampulosaurus figure and a Megaraptor figure way in the back there. And here is another custom colored figure that I painted myself. This is an Atrociraptor figure. And to finish off this shelf, I've got the Siamosaurus right here with a big spine on its back and the giant battle damage Allosaurus figure. On this next level here are many of my most recent figures, and I've even got ones that I'm gonna open up today. This first one is the Edaphosaurus. This dinosaur has a huge spine on its back, and I think it's even larger than the Dimetrodon spines. Plus this figure has an action that when you move the tail, it moves its head back and forth too. And it's got some pretty cool coloring. Most of its body is a dark blue coloring. It has some darker shading, and its spine has the bright yellow to draw the attention. Let's grab this next new figure way in the back here. This is the Dino Trackers Nothosaurus figure. This is a pretty weird looking dinosaur. It's got some short legs, so it crawls close to the ground. It has a huge neck and a really flat head, but with giant teeth. And it's a pretty posable figure too. You can move all of its legs, you can adjust its neck, and you can open and close its mouth. Moving on to this next new figure here is the Dino Tracker's Zuniceratops. So I already have one type of Zuniceratops, but this one has entirely new coloring, and it has an action button, which the other one does not. Looks like it's got 3 main colors on its body. It's got the brown and then the light tan, and then the dark brown right behind its neck. And it has the action button on its back for the head ramming action. And over here is the Dino Tracker's Geniodectes Cirrus. I think I already have one of these figures that we saw earlier in the shelves, but it'll be pretty cool to add another to my collection. It has that one single action button on its back for the chomping action. And let's see what other dinosaurs I have on this shelf here. This is the Eocarcharia figure. Behind that is the Dino Tracker's Endoraptor figure. It's really cool because it has some blue reflective coloring all over its body. Over here is the Diabloceratops from the Dino Trackers. There's also this new Epic Attack Dilophosaurus figure. It's got that button right on its side for sound effects and for lights. Behind that is the Dino Tracker's Sinoceratops figure. Check out this huge headpiece that it comes with. Next to that is an aquatic dinosaur. This is the Chronosaurus. There's also the Dryptosaurus figure in the back here. I've got the new Hammond Collection Ankylosaurus figure, which is pretty amazing. Behind that is another Scorpiovenator figure with totally different coloring. And finally, I've got the Hammond Collection Concavenator figure, which was pretty hard to find. Now let's move it up a level to the smaller figures here. I've got another Rowdy Roars figure. This is Velociraptor Blue. I've got a little Snap Squad Carnotaurus figure. Here is a custom-made Spinosaurus figure for the Hammond Collection. You can kind of tell that this used to be a Hammond Collection Baryonyx, and then they added the spine on and repainted the whole thing. Over here is also a new Atrociraptor. This might also be part of the Dino Tracker series. And next to that, I've got a Plesiosaurus, a Pachycephalosaurus, another Triceratops. This one's from Jurassic World Dominion. A crazy looking dinosaur. I think this one was called a Shringosaurus. And of course, another Dilophosaurus figure. And now let's move it over to the shelf on the very left. This is my Jurassic Park collection. And then I've got some model figures down here. Let's start with the Jurassic Park figures. I've got quite a few. There's like this Parasaurolophus, this Triceratops. I think this one is called a Cosmosaurus. There's some smaller Velociraptor figures over here, a little baby T-Rex, another Dilophosaurus, and even a juvenile T-Rex right here too. Moving down to the next level are more Jurassic Park super rare and super vintage figures, like this giant Stegosaurus figure. There's a spring-loaded Pachycephalosaurus in the back here. I've got some of the baby dinosaurs that came in those eggs. In front of that are some super bright dinosaurs. This one is called the Amargospinus. I believe it is a hybrid dinosaur. I've also got the Utah Raptor with the real feel skin, so it's rubbery, it feels lifelike. Here's a super small Spinosaurus figure. This is an early edition, so you can tell that it looks totally different compared to the new Jurassic World Spinosaurus figures. And then I've got a vintage Allosaurus figure, which once again looks quite a bit different compared to the new Jurassic World Allosauruses. And then on these bottom two levels, I've got tons of different model dinosaur figures that are not made by Mattel or Hasbro. This one right here is a Indominus Rex figure. It looks pretty similar to the Mattel and Hasbro versions. I've got some Carnotauruses, of course a bunch of T-Rex figures. This one is a Giganotosaurus figure right here. And this one was actually really expensive. Here's some more T-Rex figures, and this one back here I believe is actually an Endoraptor figure. And it's got some pretty crazy coloring on it. And on the lowest level, here are some more model dinosaurs. I think this one might be an Apatosaurus. I'm actually not sure what type of dinosaur this is. Got some more T-Rex looking dinosaurs here. Here's a crazy looking one right here actually. This is an aquatic Spinosaurus. So you can see in the way that it's posed that it's actually swimming through the water. And then I've got some more Spinosauruses here. This one is a baby or a juvenile Spinosaurus. It has a little spine on its back, and then a more grown-up Spinosaurus right here with the red spine on its back. All right, we've done 4 shelves so far, so that leaves only one more on this side over here. Let's start with the smaller figures up top. There's quite a variety along this shelf here. There's like this bright blue and gold Velociraptor figure. I've got a Camp Cretaceous Ankylosaurus figure. Also the Hammond Collection Ceratosaurus figure right next to that. A Parasaurolophus, also from, I think it was from Hammond Collection, but maybe the Amber Collection. And then some smaller figures next to that again, like this baby Pachycephalosaurus figure, another raptor. This one is a Rugops Primus figure, and some more smaller predators there. Now let's move down a level to some of my oldest and most vintage Jurassic World figures. So many of these figures came out for the first Jurassic World movie and are made by Hasbro. I've got quite a few different Velociraptor figures here. I have 3 on display. There's also this old Ceratosaurus figure. Over here are some super bright dinosaurs like this Dilophosaurus and this hybrid Triceratops figure. And then I've got some bigger figures as well. I've got these 3 medium-sized T-Rex figures and then this larger T-Rex figure right here. Moving down to the next level are even some more of my vintage Jurassic World figures, like this hybrid Indominus Rex figure. It's got some crazy awesome coloring, even some gold on its chest and on its hands. There's also this real feel Indominus Rex that has the rubberized head and neck. And then some more smaller figures over here, like this hybrid T-Rex figure. It is a hybrid with a Dilophosaurus, which is crazy. There's also this little itty bitty Allosaurus figure, which once again looks quite a bit different compared to the new Allosaurus figures. And one of my favorite figures is this special edition Ankylosaurus figure. This figure features a removable shell that you can actually take off completely to show the normal armor plating for the Ankylosaurus. I just really love that it's so bright and reflective. It's really cool coloring. And down here on the bottom shelf are some more of my various Jurassic World figures. Like this one is a custom colored T-Rex. Here's also a custom colored Spinosaurus figure. This one has some of the coolest coloring out of any of the Spinosaurus figures that I have. I've also got some more herbivores like this Triceratops and this Sinosaurus. And here is one of my favorite T-Rex figures because of its green camouflage coloring. I really like this one. All right, now the last thing to do is to check out the very top shelf and see what I have up there. I've actually got a Godzilla figure up here, which isn't from Jurassic World, obviously. I've also got another Brachiosaurus figure right here, some little itty bitty figures. These figures came as a part of a Jurassic World mini set. I've got tons of dinosaur skulls as well. And there's also this classic Jurassic Park display with the T-Rex crashing through the gates. Next to that, I've got the Ocean Protector Mosasaurus figure, another T-Rex skull, some human figures from Jurassic World, and behind that, a giant Apatosaurus figure. Over here, I've also got the classic Jurassic Park Jeep. And you can even open and close its doors too. Next to that is another giant Brachiosaurus figure. I've also got another super colossal Carnotaurus Toro figure, some more dinosaur skulls, an earlier edition of the giant Mosasaurus figure. Next to that is another of the newer Ocean Protector Mosasauruses. And there's also this giant Dreadnoughtus figure. And next to that, a custom colored T-Rex figure. Once again, this one has some battle damage all over its body. And last of all, this figure is still pretty big. It's just small in comparison to the super colossal figures. This is Velociraptor Blue, and it is actually battery operated, so it can move around and it can make noises and have chomping actions too.
Welcome to the Amazing Dinosaurs channel. Today we are checking out a huge bin full of Jurassic World predators. And as you can see on my display shelves over here, I've got some empty space. So we are doing a shelf build today. Let's get started with one of the craziest looking predators in the bin. This is a custom colored T-Rex figure. It's got fire coloring all over its body. This figure has some pretty awesome designing, and I especially love the eyes on this figure. There's no pupil in this one, so it actually looks a bit more sinister, I think, besides the super fiery color. So let's actually put him right in the middle of this shelf right here. Here is another special T-Rex figure. This is the Hammond Collection figure. It has quite a bit more detailing on its body. They did a better job with the painting, and all the limbs are pretty movable. So this figure is very posable, and we're gonna put it right next to the Fire T-Rex. Back here is another super bright and custom colored T-Rex. This is an Indominus Rex figure, but custom colored with the blue, purple, black, and orange, and the coolest part of all, the green eyes. These Indominus Rex figures are ginormous and are probably some of the largest Predator figures that I have in my entire collection. So let's put this on the middle shelf right here next to the Fire T-Rex. Both custom colored and looking real cool. Next up is a Jurassic World Dominion Battle Damage T-Rex. This is one of the newer figures from Jurassic World Dominion. It has a cooler paint job. You can see some gray and some other interesting detailing all over its body. But of course, it has the iconic battle damage that you can turn on and off with the click of a button. So let's put this right next to our other T-Rexes. Here is another Extreme Battle Damage Predator. This is the Indominus Rex Extreme Battle Damage Edition. You can see that it has all the normal coloring over most of its body, but it's got that super cool Extreme Battle Damage feature on its side that you can turn on and off, just like the T-Rex figure. And this one has sound effects too. All right, let's put this Extreme Battle Damage next to the custom colored Indominus Rex. We've still got quite a few more T-Rexes in here. Check out this green T-Rex. This is the only adult green T-Rex figure that I think I have, other than the one that I custom colored a while back. This T-Rex figure is definitely one of my favorites just because of the uniqueness of the color. It's really cool. And I think we've got a little more space for another T-Rex in the middle shelf here. Let's see if we can get him in. The next T-Rex figure is this orange one. I think this is a little bit of an older figure, so this isn't from Jurassic World Dominion, but it has that same snapping feature with its jaw that you can press the button on its neck for. Let's put this right next to the other orange T-Rex. And another T-Rex figure. This one has a bit more typical coloring. It's got a light brown body with some darker detailing on the top. It also has the same jaw snapping button on the top of its head. This is a great classic looking T-Rex figure. Let's put this on the middle shelf. I think we just have enough space for one more. Also, check it out, I've got two new figures to open up in this video, both from Jurassic World Dominion. This first one is the Kilowatts and Pyroraptor set. Let's open it up. So first up is the Kilowatts figure. It's got the blue gloves, the green vest and brown jacket. It looks like it's got some type of torch, or I think that's a shocking baton actually. And then there's the awesome looking Pyroraptor figure. This is the smallest Pyroraptor figure that I have so far. It's got some pretty cool detailing with the coloring. You can see the feathers all along its body, even on its arms there too, a little bit on the top of its head. So let's take these figures and put them on this higher up shelf right up here. The other brand new Jurassic World Dominion figure I have is the Extreme Damage Pyroraptor. I have a few other figures like this one with the battle damage on the side, like the Coelurus. I think I have a raptor with that battle damage. And this Pyroraptor is just as cool. It's got the same iconic coloring for Pyroraptors that you see. It's got the red on the top and the sides. It's got some black all over. It's got pretty good detailing with the feathering. And the coolest part of all, there's the battle damage. Press a button and it flips on and off on both sides. Let's put this figure right next to the other Pyroraptor. Next up, we've got a Tarbosaurus figure. This figure is mostly gray, but it's got some bright red on its neck and its chin, and it's got some pretty cool striping along its side, and of course, all those huge horns running down its spine. Let's put this on the other side of this top shelf up here. Here is the Yangchuanosaurus figure from Jurassic World Dominion. It's got the light green body with some brown detailing. And with this figure, you can actually control its jaw by pressing this button on its tail too. Let's put this Yangchuanosaurus figure right next to the Tarbosaurus. Here I've got a Scorpius Rex figure. This figure is pretty massive, though not quite as large as the T-Rex figures that you see over there. But it's got a pretty cool body. It's got the black detailing, it's got some bumps all over it, and it's got 2 action buttons. The first one operates the arms for slashing, and the second one operates the jaw. Let's put this Scorpius Rex on the lower shelf over here. Here is a Metriacanthosaurus figure with the yellow and green coloring on its body. It's a little bit of a smaller figure, and it has 1 action button on its back to operate the jaw. Let's put this Metriacanthosaurus figure right next to the Parasaurolophus that I already had on the shelf. Looks like I've got a few Sarcophagus figures in here. This first one is a blue color. It's got the purple and red and orange detailing on its body. So let's put this right next to the Scorpius Rex figure. And this second Sarcophagus figure has the green body with the brown coloring on top. Let's put this Sarcophagus right next to the other one. Look at that! We've actually got another Scorpius Rex figure, but this one is a bit different. I think it's a little bit smaller and it has slightly different coloring. You can see that this one's a darker green color instead of just black, and it still has the black top. Check it out, you can see the color difference when you put them right beside each other. So this one is quite a bit lighter, but still really scary looking. This is a Ceratosaurus figure with the dark green and black detailing. This figure has the action slide button on its back, so you can get a bunch of different sound effects and roaring positions too. Let's put this figure right next to the Yangchuanosaurus. All right, here's another super scary looking predator from Jurassic World. This is the Indoraptor. This figure has the all black body, so it's perfect for sneaking around in the night with that gold stripe down both sides. Plus, this figure is super posable. You can see that you can move its elbows, its arms, all the joints all over. So let's put this Indoraptor right here on the bottom shelf. Here is our first Baryonyx figure of the bin. This Baryonyx has the battle damage on its side. You can see some on the neck and on its leg as well. Plus, it has an action button to activate the jaw. Let's put this Baryonyx right next to the Ceratosaurus up top. Here is another Indominus Rex figure. It's quite a bit different from the other ones that we saw earlier. This one is like a baby Indominus Rex. It's pretty cool. It's got a few features on it too. It's got a button on its nose that you can press to get some sound effects, and you can press down on its tongue to have it eat. Let's put this little Indominus Rex on the very top shelf right next to this Spinosaurus figure. Here's a weird looking dinosaur. I believe this is this Siamosaurus. This is a newer one from Jurassic World Dominion. It's got a really cool body. It's like colored with some gray and white and mostly dark blue. It's got the red spine and also the red face. And you can open and close the jaw using a button on its tail. Let's put this massive predator on the lowest shelf right down here. Next up is a pretty interesting looking dinosaur. I don't think they make that many of this species. This is the Concavinator. It's got the iconic super big hump on its back. It kind of looks like a horn or something like that. Plus, it actually is an action button to activate the tail swinging. And of course, you've got this huge purple face that looks pretty scary. And we're gonna put this Concavinator right next to the Baryonyx on the top shelf. Looks like we've got some Dilophosaurus figures in here as well. These figures are pretty small in size, but they're both super colorful and colored differently. This bottom one has brown and blue coloring with the white on the frills, and this other one has the green, black, and red and yellow coloring on its frills too. Let's place these in this corner right over here next to the Pyroraptors. Check it out, it's a Dimetrodon figure. This figure also has the extreme battle damage on its side too. How cool is that? Let's see if we can put this Dimetrodon right next to Kayla Watts and the Dilophosaurus. Let's see, next up, we've got a Herrerasaurus figure. This one is the light gray-blue color with the white striping on top. Let's put this Herrerasaurus next to the Concavinator. Here's another Herrerasaurus figure. This one has the battle damage on the side that you can open and close. And we'll put this one right next to the other Herrerasaurus. This looks like it's our first and only Velociraptor of this collection. This one also has the battle damage that you can open and close on the side too. And since this is also a smaller figure, let's put this next to the Herrerasaurus figure. Here are our last two Predator dinosaurs of the bin. These are both baby T-Rex figures. This one is lighter in color and has a pretty small jaw, but it actually has an action button on its tail to activate the jaw. And this second baby T-Rex figure is a darker green color, and it's also got a bandage on its leg and a harness around its mouth too. Plus, I think this one is quite a bit more posable too. So since these are T-Rexes, we gotta put them next to the larger T-Rexes. Welcome back to the Amazing Dinosaurs channel. Today we're going to be checking out some of Jurassic World's most popular dinosaurs. I've got two whole shelves here set up with some of those popular dinosaurs. So let's get started at the bottom over here with some of these super colossal figures. This first one is actually the Jurassic World Dominion Super Colossal T-Rex. It's got the darker body with the brown and black detailing and the yellow eyes. It's pretty cool. Right next to it, we've got the Atrociraptor figure. This figure is a little bit smaller than the T-Rex, but it has some of that cool striping that you can see in the movie. And right next to it, we've actually got the super colossal Velociraptor Blue with the iconic blue stripe and the light green body too. That's pretty cool. And look at all those teeth too. Right next to Velociraptor Blue, we've got Carnotaurus Toro. Check out that battle damage right there on the nose. That's really cool. And it's got the two huge horns on its head and the iconic brown and clay red coloring on its body. Over here on the next lower shelf, I've got all T-Rexes. T-Rexes are obviously some of the most popular Jurassic World figures. This first one is a light blue-gray color. It's got some red eyes and a huge set of teeth. There's also this orange T-Rex right here that I believe came out during the Fallen Kingdom movie, and it's just as big as this one. I've also got a camo super colossal T-Rex. This one's a bit older, so it is more fragile, but it also has some battle damage on its side as well. And then the last super colossal T-Rex that I have on this shelf is this awesome Fire T-Rex. Check out that coloring that it has on it and those creepy white eyes too. That is so cool. Moving up a level, let's see what other figures I have in my most popular collection. I've got some Atrociraptor figures right here. I've got an orange one, I've got this tan crawling one, I've got two white and brown striped ones right there, and this one is actually a custom colored one that I did pretty recently. You should go check out the video where I painted it if you haven't seen it yet. Next up, we've got some classic Stegosaurus figures of varying colors. I've got a teal one, I've got a green one, and I've got a gray-blue one set up on this shelf right now. And they all look pretty similar in design and their shape. It looks like the coloring is pretty much the biggest difference between them. Then right next to those ones, I've got a few Triceratops figures on this shelf too. This first one is the Hammond collection, so it's pretty cool with the color detailing. Look at how worn those horns are on the front. This one in the back here is actually one that I custom colored. So this one is also in that custom painting video that I did a while back. You should check it out. Right next to the Triceratops, I have the Therizinosaurus figures. I've first got this miniature Therizinosaurus with a little bit less detailing, but then I got this huge one that's got the gray claws, the awesome red stripe on its back, and a few action buttons on it as well. Right next to that, I've got one of the stars of the new Jurassic World Dominion movie. These are the Gigantosauruses. This first one is the Sound Surge Gigantosauros, so it's quite a bit smaller, but it has some pretty cool sound effects. And I've also got this larger one that has a slashing and tearing action using the action buttons on its tail. It's really cool. And moving on to the next shelf, I've got a few Indoraptor figures from the Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom movie. There's this one on the far left that's really posable. I've also got the basic one hidden in the back here. It can move a lot less, but it still looks really cool. And then I've got my largest Indoraptor figure that actually has a few action buttons. It can open and close its jaw, and it can swing its arms back and forth too. Right beside those ferocious predators, I've got more carnivores. These are the Carnotaurus figures. I've got Carnotauruses of all shapes and colors. I've got a small baby looking one. I've also got the dark brown, there's some clay red ones. Also got some others in the back over there too. So I have quite a few Carnotaurus figures. And right next to that, I've got some of my largest Indominus Rex figures. This first Indominus Rex here is the Battle Damage Edition. You can see the slashes on its side that you can turn on and off and reveal the red underneath. I've also got one from the original Jurassic World movie right here. It actually is pretty rubbery, which is interesting. And I've also got the smaller baby looking Indominus Rex and the classic huge figure right here too. On the next level are some of my coolest T-Rex figures, and you can bet that these are super popular. I've got this gray and brown T-Rex with the button on the top of its head to open and close the jaw. There's also this light brown one that's probably my favorite because you can actually control it using the tail to open and close its mouth and to move its neck around too. It's super realistic looking. I've also got the Hammond Collection T-Rex, which is one of the scariest looking T-Rexes I have, I think because of its eyes. They kind of look like they're glowing almost. And right next to that, I've also got the Jurassic World Dominion T-Rex. So this is one of the newest T-Rexes I have, other than this Hammond Collection T-Rex right here. And right next to these dinosaurs, I've got a big group of Spinosaurus figures. These are one of my favorite species, and I've got quite a few different colors. Looks like I've got 3 colors here, and then I've also got the miniature version that's the same color as this one up here. All these figures are really cool, plus they all have the button on the top of their head to open and close the jaw. That's so cool. Right next to the Spinosauruses, we've got some smaller but still ferocious predators. I've got some Baryonyx figures right here. This one is from the Hammond Collection, and I've also got a few others that are gray, blue in color. I've got a green one right here in the back as well. Right next to those, I've got some of my favorite Allosaurus figures. This first one is green, it's got some red and white on it. There's also a tan and blue one. And my favorite one is this huge Allosaurus figure that I bought pretty recently. This is the Battle Damage Edition. So you can actually open up the battle damage on its side and close it back up, which is really cool. Plus, this Allosaurus figure is probably twice the size of these other Allosaurus figures that I have as well. Look at the difference between them. And check it out right next to it. You probably already saw it a little bit. This is a Mosasaurus figure. This figure is ginormous. It has a huge jaw that you can open and close, and you can adjust the flippers as well. Plus, it's got some pretty cool coloring as well. It's dark blue, but it has these white specks all over it, just to give it a bit more texture, and it's super bumpy on the top of its back too. It's got all these ridges all along it, which looks really cool. All right, moving on to the top shelf. Over here, we've got a few Ceratosaurus figures. All these figures are pretty small compared to T-Rexes and stuff like that, but they're still pretty cool, and they're pretty different with their coloring. This one's a super bright red. I've got this brown one, and I've got a gray and red one in the back way over there. But an even bigger predator from Jurassic World is the Scorpius Rex. I've got 2 types on the shelf right here. This first one is the larger figure, and it has 2 action buttons, one for the arms and one for the jaw. And I've also got this smaller one that's like a dark green color. This one doesn't have any action buttons, but it is still super posable. You can move its arms and its elbows and its legs. It's really cool how you can pose it in all different ways. Right next to that, I've got a few Ankylosaurus figures, all with different coloring. Check that out. I've got a clay red one, I've got a brown one, I've got a yellow one, and they all have those super long spikes on the sides, and then the shorter spikes along the top of their shell. And over here, I've got a couple Dimetrodon figures. I bet you recognize these from the Jurassic World Dominion movie. This figure on the right here is actually an extreme battle damage, just like the Indominus Rex that we saw at the bottom. You can turn it on and off, just like that. Really cool. And I love the color difference between these. Although they're pretty similar, I like that it's a little bit different. On the next shelf over here, I've got a big collection of velociraptors. But this isn't even all of the velociraptors that I own. I own so many, but some of these are some of the coolest, I think. I've got the Amber Collection Velociraptor Blue right here. I've got a bunch more smaller ones of different colors. There's a brown, a red, some green ones. Here's another Amber Collection Velociraptor and a smaller version of Velociraptor Blue at the very end. Right next to that, we've got another star of the Jurassic World Dominion movie. These are the Pyroraptors. I've got two right here that are pretty similar looking, but this one actually has battle damage on the side that you can turn on and off. It's pretty small, but you can see that red click back and forth, which is a really cool feature. And then there's also this giant Pyroraptor. It's a basic figure, so it can't do too much. Its jaw doesn't open or close or anything like that. But it is a whole lot bigger than these other figures, which is really cool. And finally, over here, we've got some awesome Dilophosaurus figures of a bunch of different colors. A lot of them are green, but you can see on their frills, they've got some red, some of them got yellow, some of them got purple. It's really cool. And of course, I've got this huge Dilophosaurus figure right here. It is also a basic figure, just like the Pyroraptor. So you can't open and close the mouth, but you can move the frills, and you can move the legs and the tail as well.
Today, I'm going to be showing you my collection of Stegosaurus, Dilophosaurus, and Baryonyx figures, and putting them up on this empty space on my shelf. I've even got a brand new set to unbox, but first of all, I want to show you something I've never shown before. This is a vintage Jurassic Park Dilophosaurus statue. It's got a huge frill, and it's even got some plants at the base of it too. This is really cool, super old, and I'm gonna put this right here on this top shelf. Let's go ahead and dig into the rest of my Dilophosaurus figures. This first one is the basic red Dilophosaurus. You can actually open and close the frills, and it's got a huge yellow crown on the top of its head. So let's put this Dilophosaurus right over here on the Dilophosaurus shelf. Next up, I've got another basic but giant Dilophosaurus figure. This one is the teal green blue coloring with the bright red frills in the front and the bright red crown on the very top. Let's go ahead and put this next to my other giant basic Dilophosaurus figure. It's looking good already. Let's see what other Dilophosaurus figures I have in here. This one is another vintage figure. This is a Dilophosaurus without the frills, which I think is pretty interesting. So let's go ahead and set this one down on the shelf as well. Right over here, we've got a miniature Dilophosaurus figure with bright yellow and red frills, and it's got the green body as well. That's really cool. It's pretty small, but you can still open and close the frills too. And let's set this down right next to the other one. Next up is a gray Dilophosaurus with red and white on its frills. And this Dilophosaurus actually has an action that when you pull up on the tail, it'll open its mouth and open its frills too. Let's go ahead and set down this Dilophosaurus too. Next up is a bright purple Dilophosaurus with red, yellow, orange all over its frills and some red on its body as well. This figure is a little bit bigger, but it doesn't have any action buttons to activate the jaws or the frills. Let's see if we can fit this Dilophosaurus right in between the two large ones. Perfect. Right over here, we've got a green, orange, and yellow Dilophosaurus, and this one actually has the lever action that'll open its mouth and its frills. Look how fast that is too, that's really cool. Let's set this Dilophosaurus down right on the end here. Two more Dilophosauruses to go. Here is a dark green and black one, and it's got super bright red on its frills. And this figure is actually one of the new Jurassic World Dominion Dilophosauruses. So this is probably one of my most recent Dilophosaurus figures. And our last Dilophosaurus is another mini green Dilophosaurus, but this one has brown on its back, and it's got red and yellow on its frills too. This is looking great so far. All right, let's move on to the Stegosauruses. But first, let's actually open up this brand new Jurassic World set. This is the Dr. Sarah Harding and Stegosaurus pack. And the box is even designed to look like a truck, which is really cool. All right, so this set comes with 3 figures. It's first got the giant Stegosaurus figure with some pretty unique coloring. I don't have one with this coloring yet. It's also got a baby Stegosaurus right there, and of course, Dr. Sarah Harding on the side. Let's check out the giant Stegosaurus first. So it looks about the same as many of the other Stegosaurus figures, but it has this clay red coloring on the top, and then the green on the sides, and then a brown underbelly, which is really cool. And like many of the Stegosaurus figures, it has an action that when you press down here, it swings its tail back and forth. Next up is the baby Stegosaurus figure. It has similar coloring as the adult. It's got the green on the sides and the brown underbelly and the red on top, but is a whole lot smaller. And look at that, even the spikes on its tail are a lot smaller too. That's pretty cute. And here is Dr. Sarah Harding. She's even got a camera wrapped around her neck as well. Pretty cool, taking photos of the Stegosauruses.
Bingo!
Let's put Dr. Harding and the baby Stegosaurus right next to the Dilophosaurus figures. This is where our Stegosaurus domain will start. And let's put the adult Stegosaurus right next to them. Look how big this Stegosaurus is in comparison to this baby Stegosaurus. All right, let's get the rest of these Stegosauruses up here. This first one is a vintage Jurassic Park Stegosaurus with a huge battle damage on its shoulder. And it's even got some similar coloring as to the Stegosauruses that I just opened up as well. So why don't we put this one right next to that one? Moving right along, we've got a light blue and green Stegosaurus figure. It's got some pretty good detailing on its side. It's got the darker green on the top. And this figure also has the action that swings its tail back and forth. Well, it looks like we're out of room on this shelf, so why don't we move down to this other shelf that I cleared out to make space. Right here, we've got a dark gray blue Stegosaurus with a light pink underbelly. It's totally different coloring, but this figure also has that same action that when you press down on its back, it swings its tail back and forth. 2 more Stegosauruses to go. Here is a green, brown, and tan Stegosaurus, and this one has a slightly different action. It still swings with its tail, but it actually swings its entire back torso, so it's different from the other Stegosaurus figures. So it's a pretty cool feature. Let's set this down right next to these other Stegosauruses. And here is the final Stegosaurus. It's got a light underbelly with brown on the sides and tan and green on the top. That is different from all the other ones that I have up here still. So let's set this one down right here at the end of the line. All right, that's all my Stegosauruses. Now, it's time for the final dinosaur, the Baryonyx figures. Let's start with this one right up front here. This is a battle damage Baryonyx with the brown and dark gray blue coloring on the top. Let's set this Baryonyx down right next to the Stegosauruses, and the rest of this shelf will be for only the Baryonyxes. Let's see what we've got next. Here is another battle damage Baryonyx. This one is actually the same as this one, so we're gonna put it in the back right here. Next up, we've got a bright green and brown Baryonyx, and of course it's got a button on its back to activate the jaw. Let's put this down right here on our Baryonyx shelf. Here is another Baryonyx figure, but this one has lighter green coloring, and it has only one shade of brown on its head. Plus, this figure has a slide lever action to activate the jaw and sound effects. Let's put this figure down right next to our other green Baryonyx. We've got another dark green Baryonyx figure here. This one is, I think, the same as the first green Baryonyx. So we're just gonna put this down in the back here. Next up, we've got a gray, dark blue, and light blue Baryonyx with the slide lever action on its back, so you can get a ton of different sound effects.
This is the first gray Baryonyx figure on the shelf, so we're gonna put it right up front here. Here is the Hammond Collection Baryonyx. So this one has a bit more detailing and a whole lot more points of articulation on its body. This one is super posable. I really like this one, so why don't we put this on the front of the shelf as well. And this is our final large Baryonyx of the bin. This one has some super bright blue reflective paint on the top of its head, which I think is a really cool detail. And let's set this big Baryonyx down in the back here. And our last two Baryonyxes of the bin are these vintage Jurassic Park Baryonyx figures. These ones are totally different from the new Baryonyx figures that Mattel is releasing now. Look how different in size they are, but I'm gonna place this one right up front here. And let's grab our other vintage Jurassic Park Baryonyx and place it down right in front next to the other old Jurassic Park Baryonyx. And that is it. My new shelf displays are complete. I've got the Dilophosauruses, Stegosauruses, and finally the Baryonyxes. Welcome back. Today I've got a ton of Allosauruses, Carnotauruses, and Spinosauruses, and I'm gonna be putting them all up on this empty space on my display shelves. Let's start with this big old custom colored Spinosaurus figure. This figure was custom painted a long time ago and has a ton more detail than a lot of the other Spinosaurus figures, and is one of my favorites because of that color coding. Let's grab some of these other Spinosauruses. This is the Camp Cretaceous Spinosaurus with the tan and the red spine and red face. Why don't we put that one right next to the custom colored one, right over here. And here's another giant Spinosaurus figure. I believe this one is the Legacy Collection Spinosaurus, so it's got different coloring than the Camp Cretaceous dinosaur, but it has the same red spine and the red face as well. Look at the color difference with their eyes. Next up, I actually just bought another custom colored Spinosaurus. So let's open it up and see what it looks like. All right, so this is a Hammond Collection Spinosaurus that has been custom colored by someone that I purchased from on eBay. It's still got the red spine, but it's got some cool blue coloring. It's got red along its back. It's got a bunch of white, pretty good detailing. This is really cool, and it's got some darker green eyes as well. So let's put this right in front of these bigger Spinosaurus figures. All right, let's dig into some of these Carnotaurus figures. This first one is one of the darker versions, so it's a brown with black spots on its back, and of course it's got the action button on its tail to open and close its mouth with sound effects too. So let's put this right here next to our Spinosaurus figures. And let's go ahead and grab some of these other Carnotaurus figures too. This is the Jurassic World Dominion Sound Surge Carnotaurus figure. There's a button right at the top that you can use to activate the sound effects. And you can see by putting them side by side the color difference between the two. This one is a lot brighter. And I've even got some more brighter ones in here too. This Carnotaurus is one of my brightest Carnotauruses. It's got a bright yellow and then it fades into the brown on the top. And just like the Carnotaurus on the far right, it also has the button on its tail for the chomping, and you can use its tail to move its head around too. I've still got quite a few Carnotaurus figures in here. This one is a darker red with almost purplish coloring along the top. And it's a bit smaller than these large Carnotaurus figures right here. Just a little bit smaller, and it has a different action. There's a button right at the top of its back for chomping its neck back and forth. It's a little stuck though. Let's see here, I think I've got some more Spinosaurus figures in here. This one is not made by Mattel, it's a model Spinosaurus, so it's got some pretty cool different coloring, but unfortunately you can't move any of the body parts. Let's see if we got a little bit more room up here. We might have to move the Carnotauruses over. Let's see if we can set this Spinosaurus down. Way down here is another Spinosaurus figure, another model, but with entirely different coloring. It's got the red spine, like many of these Spinosaurus figures, but it's got a much darker body. Let's set this down. I think we're gonna have to move the Carnotauruses, so I'm just gonna put this one here for now. and move the Carnotauruses down to the next level. Let's see what else. Let's start with the Allosauruses. This is my biggest Allosaurus figure, and it is the extreme battle damage version from Jurassic World Dominion. Let's set this down on the far corner of the lower shelf. I've got my Carnotauruses already set up over here and the Spinosauruses on the next level. Let's go ahead and grab another Allosaurus figure. I've got a gray and yellow one, a whole lot smaller than this Jurassic World Dominion figure, but still pretty cool. It has an action on its back for snapping the jaw. And moving right along, let's grab this Spinosaurus figure. This is an old one, a Jurassic Park Spinosaurus, so it looks way different compared to these new ones over here. Let's go ahead and set it down next to these model Spinosauruses. Right over here, we've got another Allosaurus figure. This one has the tan and two-toned blue coloring. It's got two actions on its back, one for clamping the jaw and one for swinging the arms. Set this down right next to the gray and yellow Allosaurus. Let's see, all right, another Carnotaurus figure. This is a model Carnotaurus figure. It's got some really cool coloring patterns, and it's got a bright orange face, which is unlike any of the Mattel figures. Let's put this Carnotaurus, much smaller, down right there. Here's another small Carnotaurus, but this one is made by Mattel. This is actually from Jurassic World Dominion. So it's got different coloring compared to the rest of the older Carnotaurus figures, and it's also got a broken horn. Right over here, we've got another old Jurassic Park figure, but this one is an Allosaurus figure. This one actually has battle damage that you can take on and off its body. It's really cool how you can remove them completely. Let's put this down right next to the other Allosaurus figures. Oh, you know what? I've got this huge Carnotaurus figure right here. This is the super colossal Carnotaurus Toro figure. It is ginormous, and you can actually feed it smaller dinosaurs that'll go into its stomach compartment. And I think this dinosaur will have to go on the very top shelf. That's the only place that has space, I think. Check it out, super tall. Here is another Spinosaurus figure. This one has the same coloring as the Legacy Collection Spinosaurus, but is a lot smaller, and is actually the basic version because you can't open and close its mouth. Looks like we've got some more model Carnotaurus figures. This one has some really cool spikes all along its back and some really interesting coloring as well. Let's set this down right in front of these larger Mattel Carnotauruses. Ooh, check out this Spinosaurus figure. This one is actually posed as if it's swimming through the water, which, if you know, Spinosauruses actually did hunt in the water. So this is pretty cool. Let's put this at the end. Looks like we got a little more space for a few more Spinosaurus figures. This Allosaurus figure is pretty recent. I believe it is a Camp Cretaceous Allosaurus and has the slide lever action for roaring and for moving the mouth. Well, looks like we're running out of room on the lower shelf. Hopefully we have enough space for the rest of the Allosauruses and Carnotauruses. Here's another model Carnotaurus figure. This one is like a green-yellow coloring. It still has some red detailing along the top, and it is in this really cool roaring pose. This might be the smallest Carnotaurus figure that I have on my shelf so far. Next up is another big old Allosaurus figure. I believe this one has pretty similar coloring to the extreme battle damage Allosaurus, but it has a slide lever action on its back for a bunch of different roars and chomping actions. I think we have enough space for one more Allosaurus right there. Perfect. Looks like we've got a juvenile Spinosaurus model figure right here. This one is by Papo. It's got some pretty cool detailing and coloring. You can still see some green along its spine right there. It's really cool. Now let's put this at the top shelf along with all the other Spinosaurus figures. Here's some figures that I don't show too often on the channel. This is a Snap Squad Spinosaurus by Jurassic World. It's a little itty bitty figure, and it actually has a spring-loaded mouth so you can clamp it onto stuff. But I just want to stand it up right here, so it's right next to all the other figures. Here's another Snap Squad figure, but this one is actually a Carnotaurus, and you can see that even this one has the battle damage right on the front of its face too. All right, looks like there's a little bit of space left. Let's see if we can stand this one up. There we go. And the remaining biggest figure is another Carnotaurus, but this one is gray and it's almost like a gray-blue coloring. It's got some red right there on its neck, and some interesting bumps and texturing all over its body. All right, let's see where we can set this down. Maybe right here in the corner. All right, all that's left are these teeny tiny figures. These are both Spinosaurus figures from Jurassic World, and they are really small, but they have different coloring, which is pretty cool. You've got this gray and green one, as well as this brown and black Spinosaurus. And the final figure for this shelf build is this Carnotaurus figure from Jurassic World. And I think this actually came from McDonald's, so it was part of a Happy Meal or something. But it is officially part of Jurassic World. So let's put this down next to all the other Carnotaurus figures. Whoops, knocked over a few. Today, I'm gonna be showing you this new display shelf full of my newest and my most favorite dinosaur figures from Jurassic World. And I've got some brand new ones that we're gonna open up as well. But let's get started with the super colossal figures at the bottom. The first that I'm gonna show you is the Jurassic World Dominion Super Colossal T-Rex with the darker brown coloring and black detailing along the top. It's got the bright yellow eyes and is probably standing at like 2 or 3 feet tall. I've also got the Jurassic World Dominion Atrociraptor figure in the white and brown striping. You can see that striping along its back. It's got some huge legs compared to the T-Rex arms over here, and it's also got a huge set of teeth. Next of these super colossal figures is this Giganotosaurus figure from Dominion as well. It's got the classic green coloring with some awesome detailing and a huge spine along its back. It's got some reflective gold eyes and some really unique teeth. It's also got a wider mouth as well. I think it's super cool how the teeth fit in together perfectly. On the next level is the first of the new dinosaurs that'll be opening up right here. This first one, I believe, is pronounced the Eocarcharia. This is part of the Dino Trackers from Jurassic World that just came out. So let's open it up and check it out. Here it is fully unboxed, and it's a pretty sizable figure. It's got some pretty cool coloring. It's got the light green, dark blue, and the red on the top of its head. You can tell that there's feather detailing along a lot of its body. I've noticed that since Jurassic World Dominion, they've been adding feathers to a lot of the design of these new dinosaurs. And there's an action button on its back for rotating the head back and forth, along with sound effects too. That's pretty cool. The next new dinosaur to open up is this Dino Trackers Stegosaurus figure. Let's check it out. All right, here it is. This Stegosaurus has totally different coloring than all of the other Stegosauruses that I have in my collection so far. It's got some green, some black, some white, some red, some really cool detailing. Plus it came with this strap to put on its back as well as part of the Dino Tracker. And this Stegosaurus has an action button on its back to swing the tail back and forth, as well as up and down with a button on the other side. Let's see what else I've got on this shelf though. Over here on the far left, I've got the Extreme Battle Damage Allosaurus figure. This is my largest Allosaurus figure, and it also has a button for chomping and roaring. Behind it, I've got the Therizinosaurus figure. This figure is actually pretty big. It's got some awesome huge claws and some pretty cool coloring along its back and sides as well. And this figure has a chomping action with its mouth as well. Behind that, I've got the Megaraptor figure that is red, blue, and a little bit of a tan white color as well. You can see that this one also has some feather detailing along its tail and a little bit along its body, and it's got a chomping action as well. Next up is the Yangchuanosaurus figure, which is quite a bit bigger than the Megaraptor figure right here. And this figure has a feature where you can move its tail around to control its head and its neck as well, and open and close its jaws. Next up is the Hammond Collection Ceratosaurus figure. This figure has similar coloring to many of the Ceratosaurus figures I have, especially with that red along its head and its neck. But the coolest thing about this figure is how posable it is and how much more detailed its body is. Behind that, we've got the huge T-Rex from Jurassic World Dominion, once again with the darker brown coloring. And with this figure, you can use the tail to control the head and open and close the jaw as well. And the last figures on this shelf is actually a pack of Stegosauruses and a character with a camera. We've got a baby Stegosaurus right here, and then the adult Stegosaurus right behind it. And they have matching colors, which is really cool. Now let's move up to the next shelf where we've got another 2 brand new dinosaur figures to open up. This first one's pretty wild looking. This is the Diabloceratops. Let's check it out. This is one wild looking dinosaur. It reminds me of a Triceratops and a Pentaceratops because it has this huge frill in the front. It's got these crazy horns though. These are ginormous. It's got the red body, which makes it look pretty evil, I will say. And it has an action button on its back that you can use to twist its head back and forth too. That's pretty wild. Now let's check out this other new toy. This is the uncaged click tracker Atrociraptor figure. So this dinosaur comes with the figure itself and a remote as well. And this figure actually follows this remote. So let's check it out. Let's turn it on. And watch this. If I click it, it'll sense where I'm clicking it and it'll charge toward it. All right, let's put it all the way back here and let's try it way up here. That's pretty cool. So it charges kind of at wherever the remote is. All right, let's move on to the other dinosaurs that I have on this shelf. Over here, I believe this is the Spinosaurus. This is a really long dinosaur. It stands on all 4 legs, but it's also got a huge mouth as well and a spine, just like a Spinosaurus. Right next to that, I've got the Hammond Collection Triceratops figure. It's pretty realistic with its coloring, so there's no super bright colors or anything like that, but it's got some really cool detailing, a lot more texture than many of the other Triceratops figures that I have. And I've actually got another Triceratops figure right here. This one has a bit brighter coloring. And as you can hear, this Triceratops comes with sound effects too. Right next to that, we've got an Iguanodon figure from Jurassic World Dominion. This dinosaur stands on all 4 legs, and this figure has an action where you press down on its back, and it moves its head up and down with sound effects too. Back here, we've got the Hammond Collection Parasaurolophus figure. So this figure is a lot more posable than usual, and it has some coloring that's pretty different from the other Parasaurolophus figures that I have too. And let's move on. We've already seen the Diabloceratops figure. Back here, we've got a pair of Rajasaurus figures. This first one is brown with blue coloring, and it has an action where you press down on its body for chomping. And there's also this dark blue Rajasaurus that has the same attack feature too. Next to that, we've got a custom Hammond Collection Spinosaurus figure. So this figure has the huge spine on its back, and it also has some pretty cool coloring as well. Way back behind that, we've got a Hammond Collection Baryonyx figure. It's got the dark color on the top and then the lighter sides and the light underbelly as well. Next up, I've got a big old Atrociraptor figure. This is the basic edition, but it still has the awesome coloring and the super bright red eyes. Behind that, I've got the Pyroraptor figure in the basic edition. It's got the classic red and black coloring and the really cool feathers right on top of its head. And the final dinosaur on this shelf level is the Kronosaurus. This is an aquatic dinosaur, and it also has this little lever action on its back to twist its head back and forth and open and close its mouth. All right, now let's move up to the final shelf level. Over here on the right, I've got a crawling Atrociraptor figure with the tan and brown striping. Next to that, I've got the Moros Intrepidus figure. This one has some brighter coloring and some really cool feather detailing along the top of its head. I've also got this extreme battle damage dinosaur that I actually can't remember the name of it. So if you know what it is, let me know in the comments below. But it's got the extreme battle damage right on the side that you can turn on and off. Next to that is another extreme battle damage dinosaur. This is the Pyroraptor, once again with those really cool feathers on the top of its head and the battle damage right on its side that you can click on and off. Next to that, I've got some human figures from Jurassic World. First up, I've got Dr. Ian Malcolm standing right beside this Parasaurolophus. Right next to that, I've got Owen and another Parasaurolophus. This one has some really cool blue and gold detailing along its body. And there's also a lasso that comes with this set as well. Up next, I've got a pair of Dimetrodon figures from Jurassic World Dominion. Both have a super tall orange or red spine, and this figure up front right here actually has extreme battle damage as well. And way over here, I've got a few Funko Pop figures from Jurassic World Dominion. I've got the Giganotosaurus figure, I've got the T-Rex figure, and I've also got the Therizinosaurus figure with some really crazy bright coloring. This is totally different than what you see in the movie. And finally, on the very top shelf, I've got a humongous dinosaur. This is the Dreadnoughtus figure, and it has probably the longest neck out of any of my Jurassic World figures. And it's got a lot of texturing along its body, which makes it look really lifelike and cool. It's got some cool coloring, and you can still open and close its mouth too.
Today on Amazing Dinosaurs, we're going to be checking out a huge collection of apex predators from Jurassic World and lining them up from biggest to smallest. So let's get started right over here with this super colossal T-Rex figure. This figure is featuring some custom gray skin and some bright red eyes, and I love the teeth on this figure. They're a lot darker than a lot of dinosaur teeth. So we're going to put this one at the very left because it is the biggest one of this collection. Our next biggest apex predator in this collection is this super colossal Velociraptor Blue. This giant figure features some dark gray blue skin, it's got the iconic blue stripe running down the sides, and it has some white, shorter teeth compared to the T-Rex. Let's set it down right next to the super colossal T-Rex. Alright, let's see. Next up in size is probably this Indominus Rex figure. This figure, although a little bit smaller than the Super Colossal, is one of the biggest predators that I have, and this one is actually the Battle Damage Edition that you can turn on and off with the click of a button. It also has an adjustable head and a button at the end of its tail that activates the jaw. Next up in size, we've got this awesome colored Spinosaurus figure. Now this figure was custom colored, which is why you'll see a lot more detail with the coloring and the shading compared to many of the other figures. Even the teeth are a much dirtier, nastier color, which I love. Looks totally realistic. Let's grab our next dinosaur, which is this huge Pyroraptor figure. Now this figure is actually pretty special because it is battery operated and it responds to you. So let's tap it on the head and see what happens. Look at that. Its eyes change, it's moving around. Looks pretty angry right now. And you can touch its chin as well. It'll respond to you there. It's pretty cool. Check that out. Now its eyes are green, which means it's more friendly. All right, let's set it down right next to the Spinosaurus. Next up in size is one of my proudest dinosaur figures in my entire collection. I actually custom painted this Stomp and Escape T-Rex. It's got some brown on the top, green on the sides, and then the light yellow underbelly as well. This for sure is one of my best repaints, and it's next in size, so let's put it down right next to the Pyroraptor. For our next biggest apex predator, we've got another T-Rex figure right here. This one is also in a green color, and it also has the black stripes on the top of its body and some on its face as well. And it has a button on the top of its head that you can use to open and close its mouth. Next up in size is actually a vintage figure from Jurassic Park. This is a Utah Raptor figure, and it stands almost as tall as the Jurassic World T-Rexes. And this figure, since it's one of the old Jurassic Park ones, it actually has rubber skin, so it feels quite a bit different and looks a bit different too. It's a lot less shiny. Over here is one of my favorite apex predator dinosaurs. This is the Carnotaurus. I love the coloring on this dinosaur, and I love the way it looks. It looks kind of like a T-Rex, but it's got some horns on the top of its head, and it's got much smaller arms too. This is a totally awesome figure, so let's set it down right next to the Utah Raptor. Up next, let's see, I think it's probably the Carcharodontosaurus figure right here. This figure features a dark blue body with some orange and dark brown detailing, and it has a button on its back that you can press for the chomping action. Let's set this down right next to the Carnotaurus. Next up, let's go with the Albertosaurus figure. And this one is actually a special edition Albertosaurus because it has the battle damage right on the side that you can open and close. You can even move the ribs up and down too. And check that out, it's got some slashes on its body as well. Let's put this next in line. Next in line is an Allosaurus figure. And this figure features a slide lever button on its back to activate roars and to open and close the jaws too. And it's pretty similar inside to the Albertosaurus, so let's put it right next to it. Next, I've got this Baryonyx figure with battle damage featured all over its body. It's got some on its leg, its neck, and there's an action button on its back to activate the jaw. Now, it's pretty close in size to an Allosaurus figure, but check out the difference in size between their bodies. The Allosaurus is way bigger. Check it out, I've actually got another Baryonyx figure. This one features the green, dark green, and brown coloring on its body. And it's got a slide lever action on its back to activate the jaw and the sound effects. And this figure is basically the same size as the Baryonyx right next to it. Check it out, we've got another T-Rex figure. This is the Sound Surge Edition T-Rex from Jurassic World Dominion. So let's set it down right next to the Baryonyx figure, just a little bit smaller. Over here is a yellow Cryolophosaurus figure. Check out the crown on the top of its head. That's really cool. Plus, with this figure, you can use its tail to move its head around in a real lifelike way. All right, let's set it down next in size. This next figure is a Ceratosaurus figure in the dark green coloring with the black detailing on the top. And like many of the newer figures, it has a slide lever action on its back to activate the jaw and the sound effects. For our next apex predator, we've got our first Dilophosaurus figure of this collection. This is an older figure and it features an action when you move the tail, it moves its head back and forth. Alright, we're getting down to the much smaller figures. This next figure is another old Jurassic World figure. This one is a T-Rex. It's got the bright green coloring with some battle damage on the side, and you can use the tail to move the head. This next Jurassic World apex predator is a Spinosaurus in some crazy coloring. It's got the bright red spine with stripes and the blue body as well. And check it out, there's even a little battle damage on the side too. Let's set it down right next to the T-Rex. This figure is the Jurassic World Dominion Extreme Damage Velociraptor. It's got a button on the top of its back that you can use to reveal the battle damage right on the side. Here is another Velociraptor figure. This one is a bit older than the Dominion Velociraptor that we just saw, and it has a soft green body with the darker green on top. Next, we've got an Atrociraptor figure that I'm sure you recognize from the new Jurassic World Dominion movie. Let's set this down right next to the Velociraptors. Our next apex predator is the Dimetrodon dinosaur. This figure features a huge spine running along its back and adjustable limbs and jaw as well. We're gonna set this one up in front of the other line because we're running out of space. So let's go to our final dinosaur, which is a Snap Squad Carnotaurus. Once again, one of my favorite dinosaurs. Let's set this right at the end. a collection of 100 Jurassic World figures, and I'm going to be showing you all of them today. Let's get started with this giant Spinosaurus figure. This specific figure is actually from the Legacy collection, and they don't make this one anymore, so it's pretty hard to find. It's got the dark green coloring, different than all the other Spinosaurus figures, and of course the jaw chomping button. Next, we've got a big Tyrannosaurus Rex figure. I believe this one is from Camp Cretaceous. It's got a light brown body, its arms, its legs, its tail, and its head are adjustable, and there's a button for chomping. Next up, we've got another T-Rex figure. This one's pretty similar to the one that we just saw, except it's got some slightly darker coloring, darker brown on the top, and of course the jaw chomping button. Over here is an herbivore dinosaur. This is the Pentaceratops. It's got a huge variety of horns on its head and on its frill as well. And it's got two action buttons, one to move the head up and down, and one to swing the torso back and forth. Moving right along here, we've got the Sound Surge Carnotaurus from Jurassic World Dominion. Let's check out these sound effects. Up next is a figure that I bought pretty recently, actually. This is the Hammond Collection Concavinator. Check out that really cool coloring with the orange fading into the brown and the blue, and the orange and red stripes along the top. Up in front here, we've got another giant T-Rex figure. This one is a bright orange color, and it has the same movements and actions as the T-Rexes that we saw earlier. This is an Indominus Rex figure, but it's actually not made by Hasbro. It's made by a model company, so it looks a lot different, and it has a lot more detail than many of the Hasbro figures. I love those little spikes running along its back and on the top of its head. Right next to that, we've got a weird looking dinosaur. This is the Sarcosuchus. It's got a super short and super long body. It's got some really cool spikes that run all the way down its back to its tail. And you can use the tail to control the head and chomp the jaw too. This next one is an Ouranosaurus from Hasbro. I believe this is an herbivore dinosaur. Definitely doesn't look like a scary predator. And it's got some cool coloring on its body. Plus an action button right on the side to move its head up and down. I've got a super bright dinosaur in here. This is a Triceratops. It looks a lot less realistic than many of my other figures, but it's still pretty cool. It's got some red on the top and the blue. Kind of looks like a baby Triceratops. Way in the back here, we've got another Indominus Rex figure, but this one looks quite a bit different. It's got really short legs and a giant head. This is from the Rowdy Roars collection, and it actually has a few different actions. You can get it to shut its mouth, and you can use the tail to hold the head up. Way in the back here, we've got a Cryolophosaurus figure with the dark blue and orange coloring. And this figure comes with sound effects that happen when you move its tail around. Up next, let's go with this Ceratosaurus figure in the dark green and black coloring. And it's got a slide lever action at the top of its head for chomping and roaring. This right here is the Jurassic World Dominion Triceratops figure. It's got some unique coloring with the orange in the front, right next to the dark green, and then some lighter green along the back of its body. Plus, it has a roaring action when you press down on its back. Ooh, check it out. Here is a Therizinosaurus figure. This has some bright red and some soft blue coloring. Of course, it's got the huge claws on its hands, and it has a really long neck and a bunch of small teeth in its mouth too. Over here, we've got a few flying dinosaurs. These are smaller figures. I believe that both of these are Pteranodon figures. This first one's got some cool reflective gold coloring on its head. The rest of its body is like a dark green color. And this second one is more of a grayish color. It still has some yellow on its face, but this one actually has a button on its back to flap its wings. Looks like we've got another big dinosaur in here. This one looks quite a bit different. It's still made by Hasbro, but it's a different toy line than the rest. But check it out, it still has a chomping action when you press down on its body. Looks like we've got yet another T-Rex in here. This one is the dark green with black detailing along the top. and is one of my personal favorites. Its limbs are adjustable just like the other T-Rexes, and it has the jaw-chomping action. Check it out, here is the second Therizinosaurus of the collection, and this one is made by Hasbro for the Jurassic World Dominion series. It's got a bunch of cool feather texturing all over its body with the red stripe, and it has a jaw-chomping action that you can activate by pressing the button on its tail. Oh, look at this. Way down here, we've got a Lego collection. This might be a Carnotaurus, I think, because it's got those two huge horns at the top of its head. It's got some pretty crazy coloring overall, though. It's got bright blue, some neon orange. Check out those yellow eyes, too. Here's another Pteranodon figure, but it is way larger than the ones that we saw earlier. You can unfold its wings to show the full wingspan and check out the detailing along its body, which is pretty neat. And it's got two action buttons on its back, one for the jaw and one for flapping its wings. I've got another big Lego dinosaur in here. This one might be a Baryonyx, but what do you think? Let me know in the comments below what dinosaur species you think this is. In the back here, we've got a good old Ankylosaurus figure. This one has the blue top with the spikes all over the top and the sides, and a slide lever action to swing its tail around. Here is a Dilophosaurus figure. This is a basic series Dilophosaurus, so there's no action button, but it's still got some ginormous frills in the front with a huge yellow crown and a dark red body with adjustable limbs. Looks like I've got some Velociraptor figures in here as well. Let's check out these three. This first one is an extreme battle damage Velociraptor from Jurassic World Dominion. Check that out, you can turn it on and off. There's also the Velociraptor blue figure with opposable legs, arms, and mouth. And there's this crazy looking Velociraptor that has some really cool detailing along its back. Plus, it's got some golden eyes too. Up next, we've got the Majingasaurus. This figure is a little bit bigger than the Velociraptor figures, and it's got some yellow, blue, and green on its body. Plus, you can use the tail to move the head around. In the back here, we've got what looks like a Brachiosaurus figure with dark red and some yellow detailing along with the black too. Check out those green eyes. I found another Velociraptor figure. This is an older figure. It's got the tan with the green striping, but unfortunately there is no action button on this figurine. Here's another Velociraptor figure from the same era. This one has the dark green with black stripes on the top and the yellow underbelly. But once again, sadly, there is no action button on this figure. Check out this weird looking dinosaur. This figure is designed to hang on to your finger, and it actually is battery powered with sound effects and with movement. Over here, we've got the Sauropelta with the light green and dark green coloring. Here is the Zuniceratops figure with the yellow and gray coloring. It's got the two huge horns on its head. There's also a few Pachycephalosaurus figures in here. This one has battle damage on the side that you can open and close. And the other Pachycephalosaurus actually has a headbutting action when you move its tail. Here's another winged figure. This is a Dimorphodon. It's got the fiery red and orange coloring on the underside of its wings and the dark green along the top. Oh, look at that. There's actually another Sauropelta figure right here. This one has the brown and clay red coloring. Next up is a small figure. This is a Gallimimus, although it's got some pretty detailed coloring running along its back all the way to its head. Here's a Stygimoloch figure. It's got a hard head just like the Pachycephalosaurus, but it's also got some spikes coming out right behind it. And on this figure, you can use the tail for the headbutting action too. Oh, right over here, we've got an Atrociraptor figure. This one is tan, and it is in the stealth pose. You can see it's crawling along the ground. This one looks to be like a Kentrosaurus figure. This one was not made by Hasbro, so it looks quite a bit different, but it's still got those iconic horns coming right outside of the shoulders. Up next is a miniature Dilophosaurus figure. Check out that super bright and colorful frills. Now here's a teeny tiny dinosaur figure. This is from the Snap Squads. And this is a Triceratops figure. Look at that, it's even got teeth on the inside. That's a nice little detail. And the last figure in this first bin is the Atrociraptor figure. I think this one's pretty recent, came out in 2023. Let's dive into our second bin of dinosaur figures right here, but before we do, let's check out these officially licensed Jurassic World Heroes of Goo-Jitsu figures. This first one is a Mosasaurus figure. It's got a chomp attack action. Looks like it has fish on the inside or something like that from that picture. So let's open it up and check it out. Here we go, and wow, this thing is extremely squishy and stretchy. It also comes with that chomping action, so you can snap its jaw shut, just like that. But the biggest feature of this is its gooey body. Super squishy, it's still got the texture like a normal Mosasaurus, and it's got its fins as well. But when you squeeze it, let's see what's on the inside of it. All right, there is fish bones in there. That is super crazy looking. Wow, they're just floating in all that goo. It's pretty relaxing to squeeze, actually. That's really cool that they actually put something inside the goo, so you can only see it when you expand it. The other Goo-Jitsu figure that I got for Jurassic World is this Pyroraptor. It also has the chomp attack action, and instead of having goo on the inside, this one is super stretchy. So let's open it up and see. Oh yeah, this one feels totally different from the Mosasaurus. It's actually like pretty hard. You can squeeze it and it moves, but it doesn't have the goo on the inside like the other figure does. You can open and close its mouth for that jaw chomping action. And this one has some feather texturing on its body as well. It has some huge feathers on its arms. Now this figure is supposed to stretch really far, so let's see if we can stretch it. Oh, look at that. There are some different things on the inside of even this figure. Wow, that is super stretchy. It's really strong and hard to stretch. Let's see if we can find out what is that. It looks like feathers are on the inside of this figure. All right, let's get back to our regular figures. I've got an Albertosaurus figure right here, with the green and the orange striping on the side. It also has a chomp button on its tail too. Here is the Sound Surge Indominus Rex figure. It's got the classic gray coloring with a little bit of brown and the spikes all over its body, and of course some really cool sound effects. Here's a pretty new figure. This is the Spinosaurus from Jurassic World Dominion. It stands on all four legs. It has some pretty cool paint detailing on its body. It's got a huge spine just like a Spinosaurus, and a jaw-chopping action by pressing the button on its tail. Back here is a Carnotaurus figure with a dark brown and black coloring. It's got a little bit of battle damage right on its nose, and it has posable legs, arms, and a tail, and you can use the tail to move the head around too. Check it out, here is the Hammond Collection Triceratops figure. This one is way more posable than the standard figures, and I think this one looks a bit more lifelike because of how detailed it is. Look at all that wear and tear on its horns. That's really cool. This is the Tarbosaurus figure. It's got a mostly dark body. It has some black striping along its back, and the brightest part is its neck and its chin. It's also got these really cool huge spines that run all the way down its tail, and of course a button on its tail for the chomping action. Up next is the Carcharodontosaurus figure. This figure too has some spikes running down its back to its tail, and it also has an action button for the chomping action too. Plus, all of its limbs are posable too. From Jurassic World Dominion, this is the Rajasaurus figure. It's a bit smaller than some of the other Predator figures, but it has a really cool chomping action when you press down on its body. This is an aquatic dinosaur. I believe it's called the Kronosaurus. It's got some huge teeth in its mouth, as well as some teeny tiny ones. And it has an action button on its back, so you can swing its head back and forth. Over here, we've got another Carnotaurus figure. This one looks quite a bit different though. It's a lot more bright in color. Its spikes on its back are this gold color. The horns are also a bright color too. And it has this really big action button on its back for chomping. Way back here is an herbivore. This is the Spinosaurus with the light green and the bright yellow coloring. And this figure has a roaring action when you press down on its body. Oh, look at this. This is actually another Spinosaurus figure, but this one is in the gray and tan coloring. And instead of just a simple roaring action, it actually has a tail that moves the head around with sound effects. Here is the Parasaurolophus figure. It's mostly yellow, it's got some brown striping with 2 action buttons. One controls the head, moves it up and down, and the other button controls its tail. Check it out, we've got another Lego Jurassic World figure. This one, I believe, is a Brachiosaurus figure because it's got a huge body that walks on all 4 legs, and it's got this really long and flexible neck. Pretty cool, it's got some cool slash detailing on its body, and is pretty large for a Lego figure. Next up is the Metriocanthosaurus figure in the yellow and green color. Let's check out that chomp action. Back here is a model T-Rex figure. Looks like it's an orange color. It's got some really cool muscle detailing all over its body. And here's another Lego figure. This one though is a T-Rex. Check that out. It's a dark brown color. It has some darker brown detailing all over its body, and you can even open and close its jaw. This next figure is not a dinosaur. It is actually a human inside one of those balls from the Jurassic World movie that you can drive around in. It's pretty cool. This is a baby Brachiosaurus figure with the gray and purple-ish color on the top. Let's check out these Stegosauruses next. I've actually got quite a few in here. This first one is a newer one. It's got the brown, green, and clay red coloring, and it has the action when you press down on its spine, it swings its tail back and forth. Down here somewhere, oh here it is the baby version of that Stegosaurus. It's got the same type of coloring with the green and the clay red on the top, but it is a whole lot smaller. Look at that, even its tail is really small. Let's see what other Stegosaurus is. Here's one. This Stegosaurus is brown, it's got some tan and green, and this one has 2 action buttons. The first moves its head up and down, and the second button does the classic tail swinging action. And we've got another Triceratops in here. This one is in a gray and darker gray color. It's got the light pink underbelly. And of course, the tail slashing action. Oh, look at that. I've actually got another one with identical coloring in here. So this one is actually just a twin. Here's another large dinosaur. This one's actually really cool. This is a Velociraptor beta figure. And it's pretty cool because it has some lifelike movements. You can have it walk side to side like this, and you can even have it chomp by pressing down on its body. I've got another Ankylosaurus figure in here. This one has the gray, green, and brown coloring, plus a button for the tail swinging action. I see a few Baryonyx figures in here. This first one, I believe, is Baryonyx Grim or Limbo, maybe? I actually can't remember their name. It's got the bright green coloring and the action button on the top for chomping its jaw. Here is the second Baryonyx figure in here with totally different coloring. I love the bright blue coloring along the top of its head and the slide lever action for the roaring and sound effects. And the third Baryonyx is right here. It's got battle damage on its neck and on its leg, and of course it has a button for the chomping action. Looks like I've got a few Ceratosaurus figures in here as well. This first one I think is from Camp Cretaceous. It's got the iconic red coloring running all the way up to its head with the slide lever action for roaring and sound effects. And this other Ceratosaurus is actually a Hammond collection figure. It's got some pretty similar coloring to the Ceratosaurus we just saw, but its limbs are way more posable, and I think there's a bit more texturing on its skin too. Hidden in the bottom here is another Carnotaurus figure. This one is from the Fallen Kingdom collection, so it's actually a bit older than a lot of these other figures. And it's got the button on its back for the chomping action. Let's see, what's next? Let's go with this Allosaurus figure. We haven't seen that many Allosauruses in this collection, but this one is probably one of my favorites because of its color. Plus, it's got those little spikes on the top of its head that run down its back, and of course, a slide lever action for roaring with sound effects. Here's another ginormous winged dinosaur. I believe it's actually another Pteranodon figure. Once its wings are opened up, you can see that there are 2 buttons, one for its mouth and one to flap the wings. This next figure is the Rowdy Roars Atrociraptor. Let's press that button on the top of its head. Oh, you know what? Here's another Atrociraptor figure, and I got this one pretty recently too. It has some really cool bright red coloring along its arms and on its shoulders, and it's got this interesting backpack tracker system on it too. Down at the bottom here, here's another one of those figures that fit on your finger. But just like that, they rest on your finger, and they have sound effects and movement too. Look at that, even its eyes blink. This next figure is a classic Triceratops figure. It's got some bright red coloring though, which is a cool feature. I've also got another Stegosaurus in here. It's got some pretty realistic coloring and some bright spines. Here is a very small Parasaurolophus figure. It's got some cool brown coloring with some lighter brown on the sides, and it looks like it has some tiny yellow eyes. This next figure down here, I believe, is called a Protoceratops. This is a pretty weird looking dinosaur. It's got some bright coloring all over its body too. Up next, I think I've got a couple Herrerasaurus figures. This first figure is a battle damage one that you can open and close right on the side. And this other figure is not a battle damage edition, but it has some gray and white detailing. I've also got a bright Monolophosaurus figure right here, and it has a chomping action that's activated by moving the tail. This one's pretty cool. This is actually a Dilophosaurus without the frills, which, as it turns out, may be fictional from the Jurassic Park movie. I've got a few more Velociraptor figures in here. This first one looks a lot like Velociraptor Blue, but it's not made by Hasbro. It's still got the iconic blue stripe running down its side. And there's also this similar looking Velociraptor. It's got some white with some black spots on its body and a little bit of red along the top of its head. And this one is made by Mattel. It features some bright red coloring with purple stripes running down the sides. All right, only a few left. This one, I'm actually not sure what it is, but it looks like it's holding an egg. Maybe it's stealing it. Comment below if you recognize this dinosaur species. Here's a crazy looking dinosaur that walks on all four legs. It looks kind of like a Sarcosuchus, but I'm actually not sure. And this figure is really feathered. Check out all that feather design on its tail and on its arms and its back. And it's got a pretty wild looking head too.
Want to see more dino videos? Click the subscribe button now.